You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 207 of the College Loop Podcast. I'm Larck, at you boy Tank on Twitter. I'm here to talk to you today about the SEC as a whole, as I'm going to be giving my prediction and rankings for how the SEC will finish as I think the SEC will finish in 2024. I'm kind of on the fence where I have Auburn right now. I think there's Auburn typically always will carry a high ceiling and a low floor. Well, not a low floor, but a medium floor in my eye, especially no matter how good or bad they look on before the season. That might be a little bit of the biasness in me. But I think just with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to go from worst to best, starting off with, of course, it pains me to say, but Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is my number 16 team in the SEC. I don't find this much of a shocker. Lost two talented wide receivers last year. One of those being Will Shepherd, who was the pinnacle of the passing game for Vanderbilt over the past couple of years. I just don't think they're in a good spot right now to win games. I don't think it's Clark Lea's fault. I think it's just Vanderbilt is really taking it hard on the whole NIL transfer portal thing. No one wants to transfer into Vanderbilt. That's kind of the mantra there. So I think Vanderbilt's kind of, lack of a better term, screwed in this new era, especially in the new SEC. If they could find a way to pick up some of them guys, get better recruiting, I think they could find their way closer to the 10 spot. I think if Vanderbilt were to win a couple more games than expected, I think they're at 4 to me right now, which isn't bad in terms of where the worst team in the SEC getting 4 wins wouldn't be like the worst thing ever, especially with some other conference probably getting having their worst team get 2 or 3, maybe 1, maybe none. But Vanderbilt, I have getting 4 wins. I just think that maybe it's time to let. I don't know what we're gonna put the blame on Clark Lee, but part of me believes that Vanderbilt might try to dip on Clark Lee earlier on than expected. I think most of it is because of what they expected to see with they expect to see more of the James Franklin stuff. That's kind of where I see that coming from. But Clark Lee's not James Franklin. With that, yeah, that's my number 16. Vanderbilt, not much of a shocker there. Coming in at number 15, I have Arkansas. Arkansas is a team that I do expect to be looking for a head coach for the 2025 season. I don't think Sam Pittman really finishes out the season. If he does, I think it's going to be a announcement halfway through the season, most of the way through the season, that Sam Pittman was going to step down from Arkansas's coach. Something is going to happen to where Sam Pittman is no longer the coach of Arkansas. I don't think he is going to make it through the season. I think Arkansas kind of messed up by trusting Sam Pittman another year. I thought it would have been smarter if they would have fired him last year. So I don't really know what they were thinking going into last year, but going into this year. But I don't think Arkansas is built for success. I think that we've kind of seen the best of what a Sam Pittman-led Arkansas team can do. I do think that they're going to be a better team overall than Vanderbilt due to talent, but coaching-wise, this might be the weakest team in the SEC. So I do believe that Sam Pittman will be getting fired this year. Arkansas will be looking for a new head coach, and Arkansas is going to finish down low in the SEC. I'm trying not to say the SEC West because there's no longer any divisions. So yeah, Arkansas currently my number 15 spot. Coming in number 14, the only team I believe with a new head coach going into this year, in Jeff Lebby for Mississippi State. I have them currently at number 14. I think that Mississippi State could finish higher than this. I kind of just have them there as kind of a placeholder until I can fully see what they are capable of with a new coach, especially an offensive mastermind in Jeff Lebby, who had a pretty decent offense at Oklahoma over the past few years. So, yeah, I think Mississippi State is a team that could probably finish up higher than the teams above them. Not much higher, I would say. I think getting Blake Shapen was a really good pick. I think he's one of the top end transfer portal quarterbacks in the SEC that's coming this year. But Mississippi State as a team lost a lot at the portal and the draft and whatnot. I just don't believe that they will be a dominant team enough, or not offensively enough to get higher than 14 in the SEC. Which, if Vanderbilt were to get 4 wins, I mean, that's like what, 5 or 6? That's probably like 5 wins, maybe 4, but 5 mostly. Yeah, so I have Mississippi State currently at number 14 in the SEC. Coming in number 13, another team that I think is going to be looking for another head coach in 2025. I have Florida. Florida also dealing with a lot of other issues off the field. One being the fact they're getting sued by a former former signee in Jaden Rashada. Sorry. So that's a whole other thing, a whole other can of worms. But Napier, I don't think is an SEC caliber coach. I think at first everyone kind of thought it was a good hire because he was killing it in the Sun Belt. It's starting to come around that maybe he's not prepared for the SEC. And Florida is a team that it's not hard to win with Florida. It's not hard to recruit. It's not hard to really do much. It's like when you play somebody 14, you pick like a 5-star school because you're not good at the game. That's kind of what that is. So I think that he's done a great job recruiting. I don't know what his recruiting strategy is to these athletes, because it's more of, hey, come on and sign with Florida, because if we don't win 6 games, I'm getting fired. That's kind of how I see that. But yeah, I go at Florida at 13. I do think that there is room for them to be talented enough to go up higher, but I'm just not going to put enough faith in Billy Napier's coaching ability for me to be able to rank them any higher than 13, because I do believe that the Florida Gators will be looking for a new head coach in 2024, which 2025 might be a very bad year with the new transfer portal and everything. So going in my number 12 spot, I do have the South Carolina Gamecocks, another coach who I think may be on the chopping block. I know a lot of fans and a lot of the players love Shane Beamer. I just don't think that Shane Beamer is that great of a coach on field. I think he's a really good recruiter. I think he's really good. He's a good juice guy as a coach, but I'm just not too privy on him as as the guy who will be leading the charge for the South Carolina Gamecocks. I don't think that there's enough there on the team to do much damage. This is a bowl team. This is a bowl game team, I will say. But Music City, Birmingham type team, 6 games, kind of where I'm feeling at with South Carolina. I'm just not too pro South Carolina with Shane Beamer in the future. That's kind of why I have him. I think I have him on my hot seat list. He's low on it because I don't think most of the SC is on the hot seat, like a lot of other people do. I don't know if there's enough talent on that team to win enough games for South Carolina to continue to have. I mean, because this is a team in South Carolina that's been in the SC championship in the past, I don't say 10 years, but it's been more than 10 years, past 15 years. They've been there before. And whenever you're there, it's kind of hard for you to expect anything less. They were really good in the Jadeveon Clowney years too. I really think that a return to a coach an on the field coach would be the greatest thing ever. And I'd say that Shane Beamer's not that. I think that I say that I don't think Shane Beamer is that great of a coach for South Carolina to really hit the next level. I don't think he'll ever be a next level coach. And then whether that's him or whether that's South Carolina's talent level, and of course they've already benched my boy Robbie Ashford. I'm just not too high on South Carolina this year. Going to number 11 spot. This is where it starts to get tricky. The 12 through 16, I feel like it was very easy to rank, and I think the 1 through 5 was very easy to rank. But 12 through 6 was very tough. or 11 through 6. So starting at number 11, I have the Kentucky Wildcats. Lost some players from last year, had to rekindle a lot of that magic through the portal. I do not know what this Kentucky team is going to look like in 2024. I feel like a lot of people who don't follow Kentucky are going to know what Kentucky's going to look like in 2024. They picked up a new quarterback in Brock Vandegrift. They got a new running back. They got some new receivers. I also have Mark Stoops on my hot seat list as well, because I think the fact that he tried to leave in the offseason was pretty telling enough that I don't think he wants to be in Kentucky much longer. Whether that's him leaving or whether that's him getting fired, I don't think Mark Stoops is going to be in Kentucky in 2025. I think Kentucky is going to be a very solid team. I think 7-8 wins, I think, is where I kind of have them. And I that's kind of like my ceiling and floor for them. I don't think Kentucky's going to be a bad team. I think they're at minimum a bowl game team. So I'm very interested to see where they actually finish out, because against popular belief, I like Kentucky, the football team. I like watching Kentucky. I've liked watching them for years. Basketball, on the other hand, is a whole other story. I cannot stand Kentucky basketball. But football, on the other hand, I enjoy watching. I've always been a big fan of Kentucky football. Particularly from going back to like the Terry touchdown days. I think Terry Lewis was his last name. And I do think that I think they're going to finish 11th in the SEC, which I think at this point, the top 11 in the SEC are going to be bowl contending teams. I even said that South Carolina might be one and Florida might be one. The SEC is pretty stacked in terms of having a bunch of. I think there's going to be another one of those years where the SEC is going to have a lot of teams in the bowl games. So I think Kentucky's going to be one of those teams that gets that 7th win. And then going up further than that, I have number 10. I have Texas A&M. I do think the Texas A&M is going to be a very solid team under Mike Elko. I think he was a home run hire for them. Picked up your former defensive coordinator, who turned Duke into a little bit of a defensive powerhouse, but a dangerous team in the ACC nonetheless. I think A&M has the talent. Every A&M team has a talent to be higher than 10 on the list, but right now I have them at 10. Connor Wegman is back. I think that's a huge pickup, just to not allow him to transfer out. A&M's always going to have that talent influx. They picked up a lot through the portal. They always recruit very well. Mike Elko is going to get the best out of his defensive players. This might be a top 10 team in the SEC, but a top 5 defense in the SEC just because of Mike Elko. So I do think that currently I have Texas A&M at the number 10 spot, because I think their defense is going to be that lights out, but I don't think their offense is going to be all there yet. So I do think give Mike Elko a year or so. I don't think he's going to be losing many games nonetheless, but I do think he's going to be a very solid coach for A&M. All right, and the number 9, a team that a lot of my viewers are very, very familiar with. Number 9, I have the Auburn Tigers. As it misclicked. And number 9, the Auburn Tigers. This is just kind of I don't know where to rank Auburn. At the floor, I could see Auburn finishing in the 10-11 spot. At the highest, Auburn could finish at 6. I mean, it's so volatile in this one little area of the rankings. It all comes down to how Auburn performs on the field. Of course, that's how everything would come down to. I think Auburn right now I have them at 9, and that's with Auburn with 8 wins. At 9, I think a lot of these other teams above them, which I think Auburn gets 8 wins. I think they beat A&M, so that's kind of why I have them above them. I'm kind of at the beat A&M, lose to Oklahoma, like category right now, and I think that Auburn as a whole is just is such a tough team to rank, because you don't know what they're going to look like. You've only seen the 8A, you've seen some of the spring highlights. But I think Auburn itself is talented, is way more talented than it was last year, especially the offensive weapons and offensive line. I think it's been much improved. I think everything about Auburn has not digressed in the slightest. I do think Auburn's an 8-win team. I think that at the floor, they're 10th or 11th. At the highest, again, 6 7, maybe. It kind of depends on how the season goes. They'll have to beat a lot of teams that they're not really supposed to beat. Because I think right now it's the 3 losses I have kind of like stapled in and written in Sharpie are Georgia, Missouri, and Alabama. Those are the 3 losses that I have kind of written in the stars. Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Texas A&M are the kind of the games I'm like kind of wishy-washy on. But that's kind of where I stand with Auburn, number 9. And before we get to the rest of the list, I'm going to let y'all know that if you are tuning in the College Loop, thank you so much for listening to the College Loop podcast. I wish y'all I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. And of course, if you're listening, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. That's always a great thing to do. We're getting very close to 800 subscribers, and I would really like to get there very, very soon, because if you get to 800, you can go on the 900, and it's 900, you can go to 1,000, and 1,000 would be very cool. Getting a little 1K next to the YouTube channel would be very cool. So make sure you do that, and of course that if you listen on podcasts, make sure you rate it 5 stars, whatever you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or of course Spotify. Rate us there as well. And of course, don't forget that we have merch on the warport.com. So if you go to Warport, go to the shop, you can find the College Loop shirt and the College Loop hat up on the shop, but those are $25 each, and it will cost $50 total. And it's be a great Father's Day gift, as it's coming up very, very soon. And I'm gonna play a little commercial for y'all to kind of entice y'all up more to get your father figure in your life something cool for Father's Day. Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your College Loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program. Yes, of course. Make sure you get those hats. If you don't want to type all of that in, there's a link in the description below for both the hat and the shirt. So make sure you grab yours today. Now moving on with the rest of the list, going from number 9 Auburn to number 8 Oklahoma. I think that's kind of where it kind of stands out that I don't think Auburn will beat Oklahoma at home. I think it's gonna be a huge test. If Auburn were to beat Oklahoma at home, I think Auburn hits their ceiling on the season, or gets closer to the ceiling on the season. I think they get in between where I have them. I think 9 wins. I think if Auburn beats Oklahoma, I think they beat Texas A&M, and I think they only finish with 3 losses. That's kind of where I stand right now. I would need to see Auburn beat one of those higher end teams for me to really be like, grab the glasses and just start booging. I have Oklahoma at number 8. I think that Oklahoma is a very solid team. They're definitely the least prepared out of the 2 joining, between them and Texas, join the SEC. I'm very high. I don't say very high. I feel that Jackson Arnold has a lot of potential. Potential we haven't really seen yet because the bowl game was not a very good what's the word I'm looking for? A debut for him. I think that Oklahoma's going to be a very decent team. I think 8 wins alongside Auburn, maybe 9. I'm just really sitting back watching how Oklahoma kind of performs throughout the season. I do think they have a pretty tough slate of games before the. I know not a lot of teams have a good a tough slate of games. I just don't know their schedule. They do play Tennessee before they play Auburn. That game is going to be a very fun watch to kind of keep an eye on as Auburn plays Arkansas. Just kind of see how Oklahoma looks. Of course, they play Temple, Houston, Tulane, and then Tennessee before they come into Jordan-Hare Stadium to play Auburn. Tulane, and Tennessee is a lot tougher of a slate than what Auburn has. So you'll get to see more of what Oklahoma is when you would see what Auburn really is. So I do think Oklahoma is going to be a solid-ish team. Again, I don't think they're as ready for the SEC as Texas is. So that's kind of why I had them where I have them. I think they're still a good enough team to finish in the top half of the conference. Coming number 7, I almost said 17. Coming number 7, I have the Tennessee Volunteers. Of course, going into the first year with Nico Iamaleava, I don't know how to say it. As the official starting quarterback, I know he started, I think, the last game of the season last year, but this season is Nico's year. I think Nico has a lot of hype built around him, and I think it's rightfully put around him. I think Nico is a very good quarterback. I think he possesses all the natural talents to be a top end quarterback in the SEC and in the country. Tennessee is also going to be very good defensively. They have James Pierce, who is starting to get noticed as a number 1 overall pick in next year's NFL draft. I think Tennessee is going to be a good team. I have them 7th in the SEC because I think the teams above them are just some of the top teams in the country. Tennessee has a potential to finish near the top of the SEC. Of course, they have to get through a few teams, i.e., Alabama, and of course Georgia, and the rest of their schedule, of course. I just think that Tennessee, I think that they're, I don't want to say that word. I think that they're at one of the more dangerous teams in the SEC to kind of pay attention to, because they are going to be an offensive juggernaut with Josh Heupel. It's just going to come down to their defense. And can their defense be one of the top ones in the SEC as well? If that happens, I think Tennessee can finish in the top 5, top 3, really. So I'm very excited to see where Tennessee kind of goes out. The other thing like Kentucky, I like Tennessee football. I don't like Tennessee basketball one bit, but I do like Tennessee football. So I do think that they will be one of the topper teams in the SEC. Going to with spot right above them, I have number 6. I have LSU. I think LSU. They'll skip a beat in the sense of they'll miss out on the Jaden Daniels rushing ability, but I think Garrett Nussmeier holds more of a natural passing ability than what we saw at Jaden Daniels. Garrett Nussmeier, guy who's been a backup for, I think he was a backup for, I know he's a backup for Jaden Daniels both years, but I think there was a year between a year before Jaden Daniels got here where Garrett Nussmeier was the backup as well. I think that he is going to be, from what I've seen of him, he has had flashes where he looks awesome. So I don't think they'll skip a beat that much. LSU is always a very talented team. They recruit very well, got to the portal very well. LSU also, Brian Kelly went through his defensive staff and wiped them clean. Just absolutely took them off of the map. No more LSU bad defenses anymore. And just completely revamped the defensive staff. So it's gonna be very interesting how that defense looks this year. Even if LSU had a top 30, top 40 defense in the country last year, I think LSU would have won the national championship, which is very crazy to think about. So very interesting how they kind of look. It's gonna be a very new look LSU going into next year. And I do think that they possess a lot of the talent to be a top 5 team in the SEC. And getting to that top 5, I do have number 5 at Ole Miss. I think that's kind of the year that Ole Miss is going to be kind of banking on to kind of get a shot at the SEC championship. But I think they fall short again. I also don't know if the top 5 SEC team has enough juice to get into the 12-team playoff. But I just think the teams above them are just are better. Ole Miss brought a lot of players back. Of course, they went crazy in the portal as they always do. I think that as a team, I don't think that Lane Kiffin will ever be that championship level coach. And Jackson Dart's coming back. I think Jackson Dart's going to be a top quarterback in the SEC. I think that you lost Quinshawn Judkins, but I think Ulysses Bentley is going to be a really good running back for you. He was very good in whenever he was able to get carries. The wide receiver room looks good. A lot of Ole Miss has the talent on their team to win a title or win a ring in some way. But I just don't think that building through the portal is the right way to do it. I don't know if they'll get there by just only recruiting through the transfer portal. I think it's kind of like their Achilles heel is the fact that they don't have enough time to develop all these players who are transferring in and then immediately have to go. So I currently have Ole Miss number 5. Coming number 4 of Alabama. I think Alabama is still going to be a top team in the SEC. kind of wavers on my where I think Kalen DeBoer is going to be at Alabama. I think year one's pretty much the same team from last year, outside of a few guys that got drafted. I think there's still a Nick Saban team in a sense, with just a new guy leading the helm. So I think Alabama still finishes in the 4th spot. But I don't think that they're going to be as dominant as they have been in recent years, which they haven't been as dominant as recent years they have been, regardless. But I don't know if there's going to be a progression from the last year of Saban to the first year of DeBoer. That's kind of like, I also just said that Mississippi State was the only new coach in the SEC. I completely forgot about Kalen DeBoer for a second. So, yeah, so I have Alabama number 4. Number 3, I have the Missouri Tigers. I'm very high on Missouri this year. I was high on them last year as well. I think Missouri is going to be a very good team again. I think you brought back Luther Burden. Brady Cook was a very good quarterback last year. I think they also made a lot of great moves to the portal and on the high school end as well. I really enjoy that Eli Drinkwitz is kind of going crazy in the recruiting world, because I think he understands the whole you got to build your team through the high school ranks if you want to win championships. The transfer portal wins games, the high school wins championships. That's kind of how I view that. But I do think Missouri is going to be very good. I currently have them 3rd in the SEC. I could see them finishing it in the SEC title race. But I just think the other 2 guys are just better, in a sense. And I mean, Missouri is really, really good. I know this is kind of weird talk about Missouri being a top team in the SEC now, but they are. Going number 2, I do have the Texas Longhorns, a team that one of 2 teams from the SEC last year who finished in the CFP. Again, another team that also didn't make it to the championship game. I think Texas has the talent back again to where they can be back to the CFP. I currently have them 2nd in the SEC for a reason, because I do think that there's a chance for them to move up that 1 spot to that number 1 spot in the SEC. So I am very excited to see how Texas kind of molds into the Southeastern Conference. I do think that they are the most prepared team. Honestly, they might be the most prepared team entering a new conference in 2024, and that's incorporating USC, UCLA, Oregon. Oregon is also the close second on that. Washington, Stanford's, SMU, Cal. I guess all the Pac-12 really, all the Pac-12 outside of Wazoo and Oregon State. So yeah, I currently have Texas number 2 on my list, especially because the Quinn Ewers coming back as well. Speaking of teams who made the CFP, a team that should have made the CFP last year in Georgia, Carson Beck, I think has an argument to be made for being one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I do think Quinn Ewers has a step above him. But it's Georgia. Georgia has a influx of talent every year under Kirby Smart. I don't think that they'll skip that much of a beat without Brock Bowers. Oscar Delp is a very talented tight end as well. Very few teams can go from one high-end talent tight end to another high-end level talent tight end. Oscar Delp will not be Brock Bowers, but he's still a guy that a lot of defenses should be very worried about. So yeah, I currently have Georgia and Texas kind of battling out for the SEC title. I think that's going to be the 2 teams that are going to be there at the end. And I'm kind of trying to figure out exactly where the rest of the SEC would kind of finish out in the 12-team playoff. I think at most Auburn, I keep saying that the SEC gets 4 teams in the 12-team playoff. I think that'd probably be Georgia, Texas, Missouri, and you get Alabama in there as well. That's kind of the most I would see. I think 3, Georgia, Texas, Missouri would be fine. So that's my rankings for the SEC. Of course, if you want to leave yours in the comment section below, that'd be cool as well. And I'll make sure if it's a hot enough take, maybe it'll appear on the show. And of course, let me know where you think Auburn's going to finish. What's your record prediction for Auburn? And just a week or so, we'll start our way to early game-by-game prediction series for the Auburn Tigers before we get into the season. And then, of course, we'll have a weekly series of that as well before each game. So with that, going to move on to the rest of the show. Huge shout out to Ike Irish, Auburn, one of the better Auburn players on their baseball team. He announced that he will be returning to Auburn baseball in 2025, and that's just really huge for a team that's going to need a lot of firepower returning. He's one of the bright spots on the team last year. He'll be a bright spot again next year. Really shocked to see him not leave for the draft. I was very surprised by that, really. I think Ike Irish is going to be another. He's going to be a guy we're going to talk about later on as one of the Auburn legends. He has been that good since he's arrived on campus. So a huge and great news that he'll be returning in 2025. Last baseball thing, shout out again to another player, a former Auburn athlete, Ryan Bliss. Got his first shot in the big leagues last night. Became the 59th Tiger to ever play in the major in the MLB, and has been the 8th Tiger since 2020. Last night for the Mariners. I believe he finished with like 2 ABs and he got walked on my pretty meh debut, but a debut nonetheless for Ryan Bliss. So huge shout out to him for getting his shot with the Mariners. The last bit of news before we get out of here, golf. They're going to be playing in the Elite Eight today against Virginia. And, of course, Auburn fell 1 stroke short of an individual national title for Jackson Koivun. One of the unluckiest things I've ever seen in my life. If you didn't see it, I'm not going to explain it as well as I think I am, because I don't know golf terminology as well as most do. So let's say about, I want to say like 20-ish, 30-ish yards, maybe. For Koivun, if he gets it in, he wins upright. If he gets it in 2, it's a ties. If he gets it in 3, he falls 1 short, which he did. So he's about 20, 30 yards away. He chips it up in the air. Perfect arc, perfect everything. Comes straight down over the hole, hits the flag, bounces off, and rolls another direction. Gets it in 3 and comes in second place. Yeah. Most Auburn way ever to lose out on a title. He's still going to get one before he leaves Auburn. That's just how I feel. But it was heartbreaking to see happen. That is probably the most Auburn way ever to have lost something. A perfect shot, hits the flag, and gets it in 3. It's so wild to see that happen. But yeah, that does it for the show today. Of course, leave your predictions for the SEC in the comments below or in the live chat on the right. And of course, I'm Dylan Larck, able to take on Twitter and at Dylan Larck on Instagram as well. So you can follow me there and catch up with me and hear my terrible football takes as well. And of course, you find me right here on the College League Podcast, where you like, comment, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts again on the SEC. Where do you have Auburn ranked? What do you have Auburn going record-wise? And again, all the things that we talk about. Your hottest take of the 2024 season. I do want to say, if you were tired of the video edition of the show, there is an audio version of the show on Spotify, podcast, Amazon Music, and you go find all of those. Make sure you rate those 5 stars, and of course, don't forget to subscribe right here on YouTube, where we're getting again so close to 800 subscribers. But of course, don't forget to follow us on social media as well, on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works, all is at the College Loop. And of course, with all that being said, this has been the College Loop Podcast.